The purpose of this video is to really provide a brief overview of the CrisisCommons wiki and also to guide you through some of the basic editing of this wiki. And this video should be most helpful to anyone who is new to either CrisisCamp or is not familiar with wikis in general. You can find the CrisisCommons wiki at wiki.crisiscommons.org, and most of the popular links, so the ones that are pretty important, are right here on the main page. Make sure that you're familiar with the project itself, the frequently asked questions, and this is also where you can find, for example, the link to the list of all the projects that you will probably be working on and that in the future you will also be editing. However, if you are attending one of the local crisis camps, you will most likely want to start by finding your city. You can do so in the contents by looking for crisis camp locals, but keep in mind that this is a wiki and it's dynamic. It's changing all the time, so this page and all of these pages may actually look quite different by the time you're watching this video. I'm going to select Toronto as an example, and in addition to editing and adding to the content of the specific projects that you're working on, you will most likely be adding information to the contents of the city page where you're actually located. So editing a wiki is actually pretty easy, and you can see at the very top of the page a number of tabs. Edit tab will actually turn this into a text editor, and this may seem a little bit intimidating for those of you who haven't edited wikis before, because it looks like there's a whole bunch of code intermingled with the actual text. You can also see the history, and really a history of all the changes that were made to this particular page. You will notice each page is structured with different headings, and these headings are reflected in the contents area. When you want to edit a particular section, try not to use the edit bar at the very top. Instead, when editing a particular section, try to hit the edit at that section only. This will not only keep it a lot easier for you and cleaner, it will also allow other people to continue editing other sections. If you're not sure where to begin, the best place to get help on the code of how wikis actually work is at the main site of the CrisisCommons wiki. You will see at the very top there's a link to what is this, and at the bottom of that you will see another link called Help on Editing a Wiki. This page contains a lot of information really explaining the most basic code that you would use to edit a wiki, or the syntax that you would use to edit a wiki. So for example, there are a number of ways that you can actually format the text, italicize, bold, and so on. There are also other ways that to sign your comments, for example, on a page, or to in fact organize your content into sections and into lists. These are some of the most useful ways to actually keep your wiki page organized. There are also other ways to make links, and these are some of the particular topics that we'll illustrate right now. So going back to the particular wiki that you're trying to edit, you will notice here that this title media is the main heading, and you can see that if you look back to the page of translating the code, is because it has two equal signs before and after the title. So if we wanted to add a subheading, for example, online news media, we can do so simply by adding 3 lines, or the next level of that. If we want to, for example, add a link, let's say we found a web article or a news article that's related, in this case, to our local news story. For example, let's say that this is the link that I want to include in our wiki. I would copy that, and then you would use the syntax to actually include that, or the code to actually include that, and it will look something like this. So you would just paste your link and then use a description that you would like to be displayed at the wiki over this link. So for example, in this case, the news story is called Cover It Live, Rebuilding Haiti, and close the bracket. This will create not only the heading but also the link to this news story. When you've finished creating or editing your page, before clicking to save the page, always try to show the preview. And this will essentially tell you that, remember, this is a preview, and it will show you what that looks like. So you notice now that below the main heading we see the subheading that we created, which is displayed here as the code, and then the actual link to the news story. And you can see that opening right there. And again, here is the code. If you want to change something, we can do it right away. If you're happy with it, then go at the bottom and save the page. In this case, because we're now logged in, you will be asked to verify, and then you will see the change reflected in the wiki right away. One of the other things to notice that if we look at the contents, the table of contents at the top, you will notice that the subheadings are added automatically. And this is again one of the important reasons why you should be using headings and subheadings to keep the whole page organized and clean. The last simple exercise in editing the wiki is really to add an additional page. And we can do so once again by clicking on the edit. And let's say we want to add a page that contains, let's say, our press release for the media. To do that, you would use a different syntax for creating another new internal page, and you notice that it starts with 2 square brackets. In this case, this would be followed by the name of the page that you're creating. So for example, you may want to start with CrisisCamp Toronto, in this case, news release, let's say. And then once again, we can make a description of what that is. So we can say news release for Toronto, CrisisCamp Toronto. Close the double square brackets, and let's show the preview. It looks like that is working, so we'll click on the save page. And now you notice we didn't have to actually go and create a page. Just by creating a link, what this did is it actually created a page. So then when we click on it, it basically says you followed the link for a page that doesn't exist yet, so why don't you add your information here? So if we just said here sample news release and click save, then that will in fact create this page called CrisisCamp Toronto news release. And that's why it's important also to keep that in the name of the actual page itself. The last thing that I wanted to cover in this is actually to encourage you to log in and create an account. So do create an account. It's a fairly straightforward process. You just need a username and a password, verify the email. It takes a few minutes. But the reason why it's very important is that if you look at the history of any page, if you're not registered and if you don't log in, the wiki will actually just record your IP address. Now this is fine, but it's really difficult to know who actually made this change. On the other hand, if you see, for example, somebody who has, you can click on that person, and if they have in fact filled in their own page and add a detail about who they are, that makes it a lot easier to see who made certain changes. It makes it a lot easier, for example, to contact that person and then really to verify and or moderate any of the changes made to the wiki so as to keep everything in line and keep everything clean and updated. So hopefully this little video helped, and thanks again for contributing to CrisisCommons.